Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. I'm Cesar Delgado. I am your host of today's program. We're glad you're here on a Monday afternoon. We were talking about the planting prep with Jason Carr for Bayer. He is a representative Bayer in central Illinois. Then we were talking about the export numbers for this week. We were having a conversation with Nick Paumen from CHS. Otherwise, this is your rural news sponsored by AgriGold in central Illinois. This week is a commodity classic in Denver, Colorado. There is an educational event in Denver. This week is having a tariffs for Canada and Mexico. The corn export will be not effect on that. Finally, the administration has revealed that the plans for the bird flu with vaccines and strong biosecurity. This been your rural news for this afternoon. This is your commodities markets for this afternoon, sponsored by Kyle Bumstead from Allendale Incorporated. Corn and beans prices are down because of the tariffs for tomorrow for Canada and Mexico. March corn is down at 9 to 4 cents. May corn is down at 3 to 6 cents on quarter. March beans is down at 3 to 6 cents. May beans are down at 5 to 10 cents. July beans are down at 5 to 10 cents. May Chicago wheat is down at 3 to 6 cents. September Chicago wheat is down at 3 to 6 cents. Let's take a look for the livestock for this afternoon. Cattle markets is down with the grains markets for today. Cash cattle weights is 197.47. Cash cattle markets is down at 3 to 6 cents than last week. April live cattle is down at 3 to 6 cents. June live cattle is down at 3 to 6 cents. May feeder cattle is down at 3 to 6 cents on quarter. July feeder cattle is down at 3 to 6 cents. Cash hogs markets are down at 89.32 for Iowa and Minnesota. April hogs is down at 3 to 6 cents. June hogs is down at 3 to 6 cents. August hogs is down at 5 to 10 cents. This been your commodities markets update for this afternoon. We are going to have a conversation about the planting prep with Jason Carr for Bayer. He is our reps for Central Illinois. Hey, Jason, you ready for this planting season in Central Illinois?
Yeah, we're sitting here at the very beginning of March, Cesar, and it's good to talk to you. It's always good to talk about planting, and it always gets me pretty exciting. Although in my current role, I'm not actually responsible for doing any of the planting, but the weather's starting to warm up a little bit. Looks like it's going to be warm this week. We should get some moisture, and hopefully, by the time it starts drying out, then beginning of April, people start be thinking about planting, won't they? Each year over the past 5 to 10 years, farmers have been planting soybeans earlier and earlier and earlier. So looking forward to that. We've generated a lot of good data about the value of that. And there's a lot less risk than people had historically thought in planting soybeans early. And part of that is seed treatments, right? That's a big factor that we didn't have 15 years ago on soybeans, or they weren't widely used anyway. And once we started putting seed treatments on to protect those seeds a little bit while they're in that cold ground, we found out that soybeans can really benefit from being planted earlier. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to hopefully getting some crop in the ground early here and seeing what they can do.
I'm looking forward to talking with you on planting season. It is around the corner. Do you recommend for early soybean?
Yeah, yeah, I know we've visited about this before, Cesar, and I'm a huge advocate of early soybean planting. And really, in my previous role as a tech development rep for Bayer, we did a lot of research around that specific topic, looking at planting soybeans earlier and earlier, and planting at multiple different planting dates. From basically mid-March through June. And what we found is, I'm not necessarily recommending that farmers go out and plant soybeans in March, but we did find that soybeans are pretty tolerant of a lot of adverse conditions early in the year, including even frost. That people used to think that soybeans were pretty susceptible to frost, and we found out that even a good cold frost will not necessarily kill enough of the soybeans to make a yield impact in most cases. And sometimes people get nervous. They see a little bit of damage and they think they need to go out and replant. That's definitely not always the case. I definitely have a conversation with an agronomist if you're considering that. But there are a lot of cases where if you give the soybeans a little bit of time, they'll come back. And if those early planted beans also can have better standability and things like that, because they'll be a little bit shorter, have a little bit more branching, and just multiple benefits from that. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of planting soybeans before corn and then wait until conditions are, optimal for planting corn, because there's a lot more risk in planting corn too early.
What fungicide for the cold weather in central Illinois, Jason?
Yeah, this whole conversation about early planting is predicated on making sure that you have a good solid seed treatment on there, because if you don't, you definitely don't want to take the risk. There's all kinds of things sitting there in the ground, and the insects aren't necessarily as active when it's cold, but there are different fungi and different pathogens in the ground that definitely affect the soybeans. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we have a good fungicide, a good insecticide, um, potentially even a nematicide. Just make sure those seeds are fully protected when we put them in the ground. And the benefits to getting them in the ground earlier will definitely, in the vast majority of cases, based on the research that we did, pay for the cost of that seed treatment.
What do you recommend for your machinery for this time of year?
Well, obviously, just good practices as far as having that equipment ready to go and checked out and calibrated. And, anything you can do in the shop, obviously, before you go out to the field. I mean, I know it's always frustrating the first few days of planting. It seems like, at least for me, being kind of a big procrastinator. Seems like I want to get out and get in the field. It seems like it comes up on you before you realize it, and then you get out and get ready to go out in the field and find out that you still have some work to do, and that can be pretty frustrating. So, I guess I'd encourage people to not be like I am and be prepared.
What do you recommend for cleaning up the planters?
Well, I don't know that I have a great system. I'm sure a lot of farmers have a system that they have, but it's always good to go through things and take them apart and do as much deep cleaning as you can. Seems like it just eliminates the problem to take things apart and keep them clean and all the moving parts greased up and things like that.
Finally, what is your thoughts on this spring season?
Well, I did listen to a real intelligent gentleman from Nutrien talking about the weather for this upcoming year, and he seems to have he's a meteorologist background, and so he really seems to kind of be in tune with those things more than I am, and he kind of predicted that we're going to see some more, kind of like we've seen the last couple of years, some later cold weather. A little bit, potentially some snow in April, things like that could hold us out for a while. But I think that still things have worked out pretty well the last few years as far as getting, I'm kind of like a broken record when it comes to early soybean planting, but on getting those soybeans in the ground early in a effort to have the maximum yield potential that they can. So I think that's important. And I think, one thing to consider when doing that, that really encourage farmers is be on top of your herbicide program with those early planted beans. Layered residuals are good. It's always best to control the weeds before they come out of the ground. And when planting early, there's a pretty good chance those fields are going to be fairly clean. And sometimes we want to get out there, and I've absolutely done this in research plots, but want to get out there and plant and just worry about the herbicide later because the conditions are right for being able to plant, and the window isn't real big sometimes early on. And so, but make sure that we stay on top of those weeds. Don't let the weeds get out of control. Don't if you plant before spraying, make sure you don't wait too long to get that herbicide down, because we want to make sure that we don't run into a problem. That is the one, I think the biggest challenge with planting soybeans early, and I think it's definitely still worth doing, but weed control is more of a challenge because we're extending the growing season by at least a month in a lot of cases over what we've traditionally done, and sometimes even more than that.
Yeah, it is pretty important for this position of early bean season, Jason.
Yeah, for sure. That's that, and there's a lot of folks working on, we have some pretty strong recommendations at this point. But there's a lot of folks working on that and trying to answer those questions. What's the best way to control weeds with that longer growing season?
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you, Cesar. It's always enjoyable, and appreciate what you do.
This is Jason Carr for Bayer in Central Illinois. We were talking about the export numbers for last week with Nick Paumen from CHS from Minnesota. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
Let's discuss about the Ag Outlook on Friday. What is your thoughts?
I guess my thoughts are it seemed like this year's conference got more attention than years past. USDA came out with I guess numbers we weren't too terribly surprised with, just from an industry on what the planning intentions were and stuff like that. So I guess it wasn't too surprising to see. Markets reacting accordingly, and a little bit of pressure afterwards. 94 million acres of corn expected, 84 million beans. That's a fairly big corn number, corn planted number. But by all accounts, I think it fell in line with what people were thinking.
What is your thoughts on the corn acres and beans?
Yeah, like I said, pretty well in line. I think with what people were thinking. Again, 94 million acres of corn, pretty good jump from last year. But it's not too surprising to see that given what we were at last year. So, but no, by all accounts, looks like it's we're gonna have hopefully a good year ahead of us here with 94 acres of corn, expecting 181 yield by what the USDA is printing. So, pretty good numbers there.
Are you watching about the planting intention report on March 31st?
Oh yeah, of course. Like I said, it seems like maybe a little bit of the the excitement has been taken away for now, just with, like I said, how much attention the Outlook conference got last week. But yeah, that's where we'll actually see it in officially printed, and then I guess I'll look ahead to the May WASI report, when we actually see what the new crop balance sheets will look like. So yeah, looks like we're about a month away, or less than a month away now from it. So we'll see.
How about a wheat acre in Northern Plains?
Northern Plains, if you're in Dakota, the Dakotas and Minnesota, more and more are less and less wheat is being grown. So it's more so a corn and bean focus at this point.
Nick, can you explain to our audience on spring planting condition for Minnesota?
Yeah, we're dry. I've seen maps that this is one of the drier ones on record here. Drier winters, I should say. We had a real fast warm up and snow melt here the last week or two, and winter's not over. There's more on the way, but we need moisture. And we need a lot of it to catch up. Number one, help replenish the moisture in the soil, and number two, help bring the frost out. I've heard the frost is in some areas is deep as people have recalled in recent memory. So. Yeah, I mean, again, if it's dry, obviously we'll plant fast, but then we're going to need some moisture here too.
Do you have some concerns about this summer and the drought concerns?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the western half of the Corn Belt's looking for dry conditions this spring and drought persisting. So yeah, it's absolutely. And then you look at deferred forecasts, and there's absolutely concerns for dry conditions here going forward. So yeah, that's absolutely going to be a concern at this point.
Finally, what is your final thoughts on the planting intention report?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the March WASI report first before that, and see what the USA does with the demand side of things. But yeah, then the March report's going to be one definitely one to watch here.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, thank you, Caesar. Happy to do it again for you.
This is Nick Paumen from CHS on Back Roads of Illinois.
Thanks again.
Thanks to Jason Carr from Bayer, and thanks to Nick Paumen from CHS. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. You have a great day.